There is something about you that was never fully explained. Not by your family, not by your teachers, not even by the voices you trusted to guide your life. And deep down, you have always felt it. A pattern you could not name. Reactions you did not choose. Cycles that keep repeating, no matter how much you try to break free from them. This is not random. This is not coincidence. The moment you were born carries more than a date. It carries a spiritual imprint, a silent configuration that influences how you feel, how you connect, how you fight your battles when no one is watching. And what most people call a sign is only the surface of something much deeper, something that was never meant to be reduced to predictions or daily horoscopes. Here is where most people get it wrong. They either dismiss it completely or they surrender to it blindly. But what if neither of those paths leads to truth? What if there is something hidden in plain sight, something that has been misinterpreted for generations? Because the truth is this: there is a part of you that carries both a gift and a struggle, and they are connected. The same place where you feel your greatest strength is also where your deepest battles begin. And until you understand this, you will keep fighting symptoms without ever touching the root. Maybe this explains why you feel things more intensely than others. Maybe this explains why certain situations drain you, while others seem to empower you. Maybe this explains why you have been searching for something you cannot even describe. And here is the part that changes everything. This is not about putting you in a box. This is about revealing what has been inside you all along, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be aligned with something greater than yourself. Pay attention, because what comes next will challenge what you think you know, and it may reveal something about your life that you are not ready to face, but always needed to understand. What you were taught about this subject was never complete. It was simplified, reduced, and in many cases distorted, not necessarily out of bad intention, but because depth requires responsibility, and most people were only given fragments, not understanding. You learn to see this as personality, as behavior, as something fixed and almost decorative. But what if what you call personality is actually a reflection of something spiritual that has not been fully interpreted yet? What if the labels you accepted became limits without you realizing it? Here is the tension most people live with. On one side, they reject everything, calling it meaningless. On the other side, they accept everything blindly, allowing it to define their identity. Both positions lead to the same place, a lack of clarity. Because when something is only partially understood, it becomes dangerous. Not because it has power on its own, but because of the way it is used. And many have used this as a shortcut to avoid deeper questions about purpose, responsibility, and spiritual alignment. But listen carefully. There is a difference between being influenced and being controlled. There is a difference between recognizing patterns and surrendering your direction. And this is where most people lose themselves. You were never meant to be defined by a label. You were meant to discern what is within you, to understand it, and then align it with something higher. As it is written in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. That means awareness is not optional, it is essential. So the real issue is not whether this exists or not. The real issue is how deeply you are willing to understand it without losing your identity in the process. Because in the next part, you will begin to see something that changes the way you look at your own story from the very beginning. The moment you entered this world was not empty. It was not neutral. There was a weight to it, a timing that carried meaning beyond what your eyes could see. You did not arrive by accident, and you did not arrive without a configuration already in motion within you. What most people ignore is that beginnings matter. The environment, the timing, the emotional and spiritual atmosphere surrounding your arrival all leave marks. Not to trap you, but to shape the tendencies you would later have to understand and confront. Think about this. Why do some people feel everything so deeply, while others seem untouched? Why do some naturally step into leadership, while others hesitate even when they are capable? Why do certain struggles follow you like a shadow, no matter how much you grow? These are not random traits. They are patterns that point to something deeper, something that was set as a starting point, not a final destination. But here is where truth must be spoken clearly. This imprint is not your identity, and it is not your destiny. It is a tendency. a direction that can either be refined or distorted depending on how you respond to it. Many people make the mistake of embracing their tendencies as who they are. Others try to fight them without understanding them. Both paths lead to frustration. You were never called to ignore what is within you, and you were never called to be ruled by it. You were called to discern it. As it is written in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." That means transformation begins when you stop reacting automatically and start seeing clearly. Because once you recognize the imprint, you can begin to understand the real battle connected to it, and that battle is where most people lose without even realizing they are fighting. The place where your strength lives is not separate from the place where your struggle begins. They are connected, closer than you think, and most people never realize it until they are already trapped in cycles they cannot explain. What you call a weakness is often a misdirected strength. What you see as a flaw is often a gift operating without guidance. And this is where the real conflict starts, not outside of you, but within you. There are those who feel everything intensely. When aligned, they carry compassion, discernment, the ability to connect deeply. But when unguarded, that same sensitivity becomes anxiety, emotional overload, and exhaustion. There are those who naturally lead. When aligned, they bring direction, courage, and clarity. But when misaligned, that same force becomes control, pride, and isolation. There are those who think deeply, who analyze, who seek understanding. When aligned, they carry wisdom and insight. But when disconnected, they fall into overthinking, doubt, and paralysis. Do you see it now? The power and the problem come from the same source. This is why many people feel stuck. They are trying to eliminate something that was never meant to be removed. Instead of learning how to direct it, they try to suppress it. Instead of understanding it, they run from it. But suppression does not bring freedom. It only hides the conflict until it grows stronger. As it is written in Galatians chapter 5, verse 17, "The flesh desires what is contrary to the spirit, and the spirit what is contrary to the flesh." There is a tension within you, and ignoring it does not make it disappear. So the real question is not whether you have a struggle. The real question is whether you recognize the root of it, because what comes next will reveal something most people spend their entire lives searching for, without ever realizing it was within their reach all along. Hidden within what you struggle with the most is the very power you were meant to carry. Not in a superficial way, not as something you display, but as something that transforms how you live, how you respond, how you walk through this life. The one who feels deeply is not weak. When aligned, that sensitivity becomes spiritual perception. It becomes the ability to discern what others ignore, to sense what is not being said, to carry empathy that heals instead of drains. The one who leads naturally is not controlling by nature. When aligned, that strength becomes responsibility. It becomes the courage to stand when others hesitate, to guide without dominating, to serve without losing authority. The one who thinks deeply is not broken. When aligned, that depth becomes clarity. It becomes the ability to see beyond confusion, to understand patterns, to bring light where others only see complexity. This is what most people never hear. Your power was never meant to be loud. It was meant to be aligned. But alignment does not happen automatically. It requires awareness, discipline, and a decision to stop living on instinct alone. As it is written in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, "God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." That means what you carry is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to be directed. And this is where everything begins to shift. Because once you recognize that your struggle is connected to your strength, you stop asking why you are like this, and you start asking how this can be used. But there is a reason you have not accessed this fully yet, and it is not what most people think. You did not fail to access this power because it is hidden from you. You failed to access it because no one taught you how to recognize it without distorting it. You were taught to label, not to understand, to react, not to discern. And over time, distractions took the place of awareness. Noise replaced reflection. You became busy managing life, but distant from yourself. This is how it happens. The one who feels deeply starts to shut down, just to survive. The one who leads begins to control because they were never taught how to serve with balance. The one who thinks deeply gets lost in their own mind because they never learned how to ground their thoughts in truth. It is not a lack of power, it is a lack of alignment. And here is something most people avoid facing. Sometimes it is easier to stay in confusion than to take responsibility for clarity. Because clarity demands change. It demands that you stop blaming what is around you and start confronting what is within you. As it is written in Hosea chapter 4 verse 6, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, not lack of opportunity, not lack of potential, but lack of understanding." You were never meant to operate on autopilot. You were never meant to live reacting to patterns you do not question. But if you do not slow down and look within, you will keep repeating cycles and calling them personality. This is why many never step into what they carry. Not because they do not have it, but because they never stop long enough to see it clearly. And once you begin to see, you cannot go back to ignorance, because awareness creates a responsibility that changes everything. What comes next is where direction replaces confusion, and where what you carry finally begins to move with purpose. Understanding what you carry is not enough. Recognition without direction only creates frustration. You see it, you feel it, but you still do not know what to do with it. This is where many stop, aware but still stuck, because activation requires alignment. You cannot operate a spiritual capacity while living disconnected from the source that gives it purpose. What you carry was never designed to function in isolation. It was designed to be guided. This is where everything shifts. Not when you try harder, not when you analyze more, but when you realign what is within you with what is above you. The one who feels deeply must learn to anchor that sensitivity in truth, or it will become instability. The one who leads must learn humility, or strength will turn into control. The one who thinks deeply must learn trust, or clarity will turn into endless doubt. This is not self-improvement. This is surrender with awareness. As it is written in James chapter 1 verse 5, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault." That means direction is available, but it must be sought intentionally. You do not activate what you carry by forcing it. You activate it by aligning it. By bringing your tendencies under discipline, your emotions under truth, your thoughts under guidance. Because power without alignment will always collapse under pressure. And now that you understand this, there is something you need to be aware of, something that many ignore until it is too late. Not everything that feels like power is safe. Not everything that comes naturally to you should be trusted without discernment. This is where many lose themselves, not in weakness, but in the misuse of what they carry. When a gift is not guided, it becomes a doorway to distortion. The one who feels deeply can begin to absorb what was never theirs to carry, becoming overwhelmed, losing clarity, mistaking emotional weight for truth. The one who leads can cross the line between influence and control, slowly replacing purpose with ego. The one who thinks deeply can start believing their own thoughts above truth, becoming trapped in reasoning that feels right but leads nowhere. This is how subtle it is. Nothing changes overnight. It shifts slowly, quietly, until what was meant to build begins to destroy. And most people do not notice because it still feels familiar. As it is written in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 12, "If you think you are standing firm, be careful that you do not fall." Awareness must be constant, not occasional. Power without guidance creates illusion. It convinces you that you are in control when in reality you are drifting. This is why discernment is not optional. You must question what you feel, test what you think, and examine what drives your actions. Because not every impulse deserves expression, and not every ability should be used without direction. If you ignore this, you will eventually become a prisoner of what once looked like a gift. But if you stay aware, if you remain aligned, then what you carry will not control you. It will serve a greater purpose. And now, you're left with a decision that will define how your life unfolds from this point forward. Now you know enough to choose, and that is where everything becomes real. Not in what you feel, not in what you have discovered, but in what you decide to do with it from this moment forward. You can go back to living on instinct, reacting the same way, repeating the same cycles, calling it who you are. or you can step into awareness and begin to direct what you carry with intention. Because the truth is simple and difficult at the same time. What is within you will either be refined or it will be distorted. It will either be aligned or it will work against you. And that decision is not made once, it is made daily. Every reaction, every thought, every choice is shaping the direction of what you carry. As it is written in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life. This is not just about belief. This is about alignment in action. You do not need to become someone else. You need to become aware of who you are and bring that into alignment with truth. That is where transformation begins. Not in denial, not in excess, but in clarity. So from this point on, pay attention to your patterns. Question your reactions. Do not accept everything that feels natural as something that should lead you, because what feels natural is not always what is right. And if this message spoke to you, do not ignore it. Share it with someone who has been trying to understand themselves and cannot find the words. And if you are ready to go deeper, stay connected, because what you are beginning to understand now can change the way you live entirely. What you have just heard is not something to admire. It is something to apply. Because insight without action fades, and what was clear today becomes distant tomorrow if you do nothing with it. From now on, you will notice things you did not notice before. The way you react, the way you feel, the patterns that repeat. And in those moments, you will have a choice to respond the same way or to interrupt the cycle and realign. This is where transformation becomes real. Not in big moments, but in small decisions that no one sees. The moment you choose patience instead of reaction, the moment you choose clarity instead of confusion, the moment you choose truth over what feels immediate, that is where your power begins to move with purpose. As it is written in Luke chapter 16, verse 10, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. This means your growth will be revealed in the details, not in appearances. Do not wait for a perfect moment to change. Do not expect a sudden shift without consistent alignment. What you carry will respond to what you practice daily. And understand this, you are not here by accident. You did not hear this by chance. There is a reason this reached you, and what you do with it will define the next season of your life. Stay aware, stay aligned, and do not go back to living without understanding what is within you. There is something you need to settle in your spirit before you move forward. You are not trying to become powerful. You are learning how to live aligned with what has already been placed within you. Many spend their lives chasing what they already carry, simply because they never stop to recognize it. They look outside, compare themselves, try to imitate others, and in that process, they disconnect from their own assignment. But what is within you was not given by mistake. The way you feel, the way you think, the way you respond, all of it can either serve your purpose or slowly pull you away from it. And the difference is not in the intensity of what you carry, but in the direction you give to it. As it is written in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace. That means what you carry is not only for you, it has a purpose beyond you. This is where maturity begins. When you stop asking how this affects you and start asking how this can be used to build, to guide, to bring clarity to someone else. Because when what you carry is aligned, it does not create confusion, it creates impact. And if you have come this far, then you already feel that something is shifting. Not outside, but within. A new awareness, a new responsibility, a new direction. Do not ignore that. Take a moment after this ends. Reflect on what you have seen about yourself. Be honest. Do not rush past it, because this is not just another message. This is a turning point, and what you do next will determine whether it becomes just another idea or the beginning of a different way of living. What you do after this moment will reveal how much this truly meant to you, because understanding creates a weight, not pressure but responsibility. And once you see clearly, you cannot pretend you did not. You have spent time trying to understand yourself, trying to fix what feels wrong, trying to make sense of patterns that never seem to change. But now you know that what you carry was never the problem. The problem was living without direction. And this is where your next step begins. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now. Pay attention to your next reaction. Pay attention to your next decision. That is where this becomes real. That is where alignment either happens or is ignored. As it is written in James chapter 4, verse 17, if anyone knows the good they ought to do and does not do it, it is sin for them. That means awareness without action is not neutral. It is a missed opportunity to grow. So do not let this stay as information. Let it become movement. Return to what you felt while listening, that moment where something made sense in a way it never did before. That is where you begin, not by changing everything at once, but by choosing differently when it matters. And if this reached you in a way you did not expect, stay connected, because this is only the beginning of understanding what has always been within you, waiting to be aligned, waiting to be used with purpose. This is where most people turn back. Not because they did not understand, but because they understood enough to realize that change will cost them comfort. Awareness is uncomfortable. It exposes patterns you once justified. It confronts reactions you used to excuse. It removes the illusion that you are not responsible for how your life is unfolding. And many would rather stay familiar than become aligned. But listen carefully. Every time you ignore what you now see, you reinforce the same cycle you said you wanted to break. Every time you choose what is easy over what is right, you strengthen the very pattern that keeps you stuck. This is why transformation is not emotional. It is intentional. As it is written in Matthew chapter 7, verse 24, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. Not the one who feels inspired, but the one who acts with consistency. You will not feel ready, you will not feel certain every time. But alignment is not built on feelings, it is built on decisions repeated until they become your new nature. So when the moment comes, and it will come, when you are about to react the way you always have, pause, recognize it, choose differently. That is where power becomes real. And if you have come this far, then you already know this is not just another message. This is a line being drawn between who you were and who you are becoming. Do not step back from it. Now everything becomes clear in a way you cannot ignore. You were never missing something. You were misaligned. And misalignment creates confusion that feels like lack, when in reality it is direction that was never corrected. This is why you kept searching, not because you were empty, but because what was within you was never fully understood or properly guided. And now you stand in a different place, not because everything changed around you, but because something shifted inside you, a clarity that did not exist before, a responsibility you cannot escape, a decision that no one else can make for you. As it is written in Joshua chapter 24, verse 15, choose this day whom you will serve. This is not just about belief. It is about alignment. It is about deciding what will guide your thoughts, your reactions, your direction from this point forward. You cannot unknow what you now understand. You cannot return to the same level of unconscious living without feeling the weight of it. So the question is no longer what is within you. The question is what you will do with it. Will you continue to react, repeating patterns and calling it who you are? Or will you take ownership and begin to direct what you carry with intention? Because from this moment on, every choice will either move you closer to alignment or further into confusion. And the truth is simple. No one else can walk this for you. This is the point where everything is decided, not in words, but in the direction you choose when no one is watching. Because real change is not proven in moments of emotion, it is revealed in consistency. You have heard, you have understood, and now you are accountable for what comes next. There will be moments when the old patterns call you back, when reacting feels easier than aligning, when going back feels more comfortable than moving forward. That is where the separation happens, not between strong and weak, but between those who decide and those who delay. Because delay is a decision. As it is written in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, do not be deceived, God is not mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Every reaction you repeat is a seed. Every aligned decision is also a seed. And over time, what you plant becomes what you live. So do not expect different results while feeding the same patterns. What you carry is not a burden. It is a responsibility with potential. And now you know that your strength and your struggle come from the same place. That means your future will be shaped by how you choose to direct it. There is no shortcut. There is no instant transformation. But there is a clear path. Pay attention to yourself. Be honest about what you see. Correct what needs to be corrected without excuses. Because at the end of the day, your life will reflect the choices you consistently make. This is where you stop observing and start becoming. Now you understand that this was never about discovering something new. It was about seeing clearly what was already there and choosing not to ignore it anymore. There comes a moment when knowledge stops being optional and starts becoming a turning point. This is that moment. You can feel it. That quiet conviction that something needs to change, not outside but within. Not in a dramatic way, but in the small decisions that define who you are becoming. Because who you become is not decided in one moment. It is built through repetition, through what you allow, what you reject, what you choose when no one is guiding you. As it is written in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. This is not automatic. It is a process of alignment, where you no longer live led by old patterns, but guided by truth. So from this point forward, do not just observe yourself, lead yourself. Interrupt what needs to be interrupted. Strengthen what needs to be strengthened. Let go of what you know no longer serves your direction, because clarity without movement becomes regret. And if this message reached you at the right time, do not keep it to yourself. There are people around you trying to understand the same things you have just begun to see. Stay aware, stay intentional, and do not lose what you have gained here. This is where it begins to show in the way you live. Now you face the only thing that truly matters. Not what you felt, not what you understood, but who you are becoming after this. Because transformation is not proven by what you know. It is revealed by what you consistently do when life tests you. There will be moments when everything you heard here will be challenged. Situations that trigger your old reactions. People who pull you back into familiar patterns. Thoughts that try to convince you that nothing has really changed. That is where your decision becomes visible. As it is written in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22 to 24, put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires. Be made new in the attitude of your minds, and put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. This is not a suggestion, it is a call to action. You do not drift into a new life, you step into it intentionally. So when the pressure comes, and it will come, remember this: you are not reacting blindly anymore. You are choosing with awareness. You are directing what you carry instead of being led by it. And that changes everything. Do not measure your growth by perfection. Measure it by direction. By how often you catch yourself before falling into the same cycle. By how quickly you realign when you notice you are drifting. Because every time you choose alignment, even in small ways, you are building something stronger than emotion. You are building character. And character is what sustains what you carry. This is where your life begins to reflect what you have understood. At this point, you can no longer say you do not know. The question has shifted. It is no longer about understanding yourself, it is about governing yourself. Because what you carry does not disappear. It waits for direction. If you do not lead it, it will lead you. If you do not discipline it, it will express itself without measure. And that is how many lose control of something that was meant to be a gift. You have seen your patterns. You have recognized your tendencies. Now comes the part that requires maturity. As it is written in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 27, I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others I myself should be disqualified. This is the level of awareness you are being called into. Not occasional control, but consistent discipline. Discipline is not restriction. It is direction. It is choosing not to say everything you feel. It is choosing not to act on every impulse. It is choosing to pause, to think, to align before you respond. Because every undisciplined reaction weakens your direction. Every aligned decision strengthens it. And this is where many fall short, not because they lack understanding, but because they avoid the responsibility that comes with it. But you cannot avoid it anymore. You have seen too much to go back to living without intention. So from now on, do not just ask what you feel. Ask what is right. Do not just follow what comes naturally. Examine where it leads, because what you consistently allow will define who you become. And now, you are closer than ever to living with clarity if you choose not to step away from it. Now everything comes down to consistency. Not intensity, not motivation, but consistency. Because what you repeat becomes your reality, whether you are aware of it or not. There will be days when you feel aligned, clear, in control, and there will be days when everything feels heavy, when old patterns try to take over, when it seems easier to go back to who you were. That is where most people break, not because they cannot change, but because they expect change to feel good all the time. But growth is not built on how you feel. It is built on what you choose, especially when you do not feel like choosing it. As it is written in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. This means the discomfort you feel is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that something is being formed. So do not be discouraged when it feels difficult. Do not interpret resistance as failure. See it as part of the process of becoming stable, grounded, and aligned. Because instability is easy. Anyone can react, anyone can drift, anyone can live without direction. But consistency requires decision, again and again, even when no one is watching, even when nothing seems to be changing immediately. And this is where your future is being built. Not in one moment, but in repeated choices that shape who you are becoming. You are closer than you think, but only if you keep moving in the right direction. This is the moment where everything settles into truth. Not a temporary feeling, not a passing realization, but a clear understanding of what your life can become if you continue in this direction. You started this journey trying to understand something about yourself. Now you stand with something much greater: clarity, responsibility, direction. And with that comes a final question that only you can answer. Will you live aware, or will you return to automatic patterns? Because nothing will force you to stay aligned. There is no external pressure that will sustain this for you. It is built in the quiet decisions, in the moments no one sees, in the discipline you choose when it would be easier not to. As it is written in John chapter 8, verse 32, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. But truth only frees those who apply it. So from this point forward, do not forget what you have seen. Do not ignore what you have understood. Let it guide you, correct you, strengthen you. And if this message reached you in a real way, do not keep it to yourself. There are people around you living in confusion, repeating cycles, searching for answers you have just begun to see. Share this. Stay connected. Continue growing. Because this is not the end of something. This is the beginning of a life lived with intention, clarity, and alignment.